Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNativeBloodyElbow.com, joined by Zane Simon for the sixth round of UFC on Fox 19, featuring Glover Teixeira annihilating a shot Rashad Evans, no Lyoto Machida versus Dan Henderson, and a bunch of other fights. Zane, thoughts on the event?
It was all right. I mean, the fights were good enough, and it had plenty of finishes, so I can't really complain a lot. It just, live TV Fox pacing is never that fun. So even like if a fight's okay, then it immediately gets dragged way down by long breaks surrounding it, and if a
Yeah,
fight's good, you kind of forget that by the next fight.
yeah. I slightly prefer the Fox
Yeah,
pacing to the Fox Sports 1 pacing.
they certainly can't stretch their time allotted time on Fox nearly the way they can
No.
on
And
FX1.
they're not nearly as desperate for money. Although it was interesting to see the local advertisers that get on the Fox show, which seemed pretty riffraffy to me. But the most significant thing of the evening, I believe, was the return of Khabib the Eagle Nurmagomedov, who beat Del Horcher in a tune-up fight that really took way too long to stop. It was a second round stoppage, 338. Probably should have been stopped at, I don't know, 350.
Yeah, I think part of that's just how technically dominant he was. Like, it was a pretty normal stoppage, but it was one of those things where the guy is so obviously overmatched on the mat that you're like, oh, no, you've got to stop this because we know he's not getting out of it.
Yeah, this is going in one direction. Water flows downhill, and Nurmagomedov is going to be blasting Horcher. It's not going to be turning around. So, but let's talk about the main event. Glover Teixeira annihilated Rashad Evans, minute 48 seconds in the first round, knockout. Does this tell us anything? Is Glover Teixeira good, or is Rashad Evans just shot and Glover did what he's going to do against a guy who really shouldn't be fighting at this level anymore?
Well, Glover's win over Oven St. Preux last year says a lot more about where Glover is right now, which is that he's still right there in the edges of the top five. He's still a top
Yeah.
4, 5, 6 kind of fighter. But otherwise, this doesn't, this fight in particular doesn't tell us any more or less about that. It's just we have a top 4, 5, 6 fighter against a guy who's at the edges of the top 10, and the only reason he's at the edges of the top 10 is because the edges of the top 10 at light heavyweight include Little Nog and Shogun and all the rest of the light heavyweights of yesterday.
Yeah, it's an abyss in a division that used to be the marquee division of the sport. And sadly, half of the top 10 are guys who were in the top 10 in the heyday of the division. So, yeah, I mean, Rashad, Little Nog, Shogun who was supposed to fight Rashad Evans, and in what would have been a probably much more evenly matched fight because these are both guys way deep in the Phantom Toll booth. And Glover Teixeira, I'm not dying to see him fight John Jones again. And I'd be mildly interested. I'd be plenty interested in seeing him fight Cormier.
Sure.
And Anthony Rumble Johnson, I think, would be a very fun fight. Good test for both guys. But as long as John Jones is here wrecking the division, Glover's kind of topped out. I mean, I'm sure they'd book a fight with him if they can't get anything else going for Jones, but it's not going to be a big money fight, and I don't think it's going to teach us anything about the division. But what about the aborted co-main event, Lyoto Machida and Dan Henderson? Lyoto self-reported using a banned substance. Do we know if he was actually caught in a piss test or not?
No, I think he was not actually caught. We don't know that. I mean, he may still be. I just don't know that it came back for testing yet. Maybe it did already, but
yeah.
The only thing that they said at the time was he self-reported it because I think the sheet that you fill out, they probably say, please list all the substances you've taken in the last month or last 6 months or whatever.
Yeah.
As part of your drug test, you list everything out, and he listed everything out, and they're like, oh, whoa, this is banned, So I think that's probably what happened.
And I think the confusion arose because it's not a steroid, but it's a substance that's used for muscle mass building. And he claims he didn't know it was banned, and it's a big long list of complicated stuff, and there's a lot of gray area between over-the-counter substances.
Yeah, I mean, if you can, it's not hard to imagine fighters having really poor management around them that just would not cue them in on any of this stuff, and it's not hard to imagine fighters totally ignoring it otherwise and just not even thinking about it or giving it any mind at all, because that's not, I mean, these guys fight for a living. They don't read for a living.
Yeah, they're not doing science on the regular basis. So Dan Henderson's reaction, of course, was classic, calling him a piece of shit over Twitter. This is a guy who used testosterone replacement therapy longer than any other fighter I know of, other than the mysterious Randy Couture, who, of course, never used any substances
Of
in his
course.
miraculous career until he was nearly 50. So just a frustrating set of events. I mean, I would much rather have seen the fight, then let Machida get popped, then pay the consequences. It seems like an honest mistake on Machida's part, but really, you got to know the list of banned substances. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
stupid. That's your own
I mean,
fault.
somebody in his he's made enough money too that he should have somebody there, whoever his nutritionist is or whatever, that is really familiar with that stuff. Like
Yeah,
whoever's in charge of that for him should be fired, and if he has nobody in charge of that for him, then that's where he's dumb.
yeah, that was just bad. The sad part is, I was anything but pumped for that fight because it was a
I know.
rematch of a dismal fight between two guys who are both well past their sell by date. Dan, in particular, is past his expiration date. The last fight was a complete standoff to no point. Um, and now we just have this. So, we got a 4-fight main card. Let's talk about what ended up being the co-main event. The women's strawweight Rosa Namajunas defeated Tisha Torres by unanimous decision. Scrappy strawweight fight, but I don't know. I wasn't blown away.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, it was a good fight, solid, back and forth. Both showed a lot of improvements in their games, but it really did not determine, like, oh, this is the obvious next contender. It didn't show either fighter to be particularly better than the other. I scored it for Torres, but I really was not at all surprised Namajunas won it and had no problem either way. And it was just, it's not the kind of performance where you're like, oh, there's our next contender. Can you
Yeah,
believe it? It's like, okay, well, we'll see
definitely
what
not.
Namajunas has at the top of the division now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this was the number 3 and the number 4 star weights. But the thing is, the whole time I was watching the fight, I was just going, NJ Czech would just annihilate these gals. I don't see any trouble for Joanna Czech from either of them in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that's definitely the feeling she has over that division, is
Yeah,
especially with fighters who are really going to be based on their like volume kickboxing approach. It's just like,
you're not
you're
going to
really going to
outpoint.
just have to outwork her. That's because that's a hard as hell way to go.
Yeah, when you've got no pop and you're going to be fighting her and she's got plenty of pop, she's going to be plenty of popping you upside and downside and just, but Rose would be a perfectly good opponent for an NJ Czech title fight. I mean,
Yep.
that's where we are, and so she earned it. And be careful what you wish for, because I think it's going to be a painful lesson, maybe even a disfiguring one. But that's the fight game. And Tisha Torres back to the drawing board. That certainly doesn't knock her out of contention. Um,
Nope.
get a couple wins and you'll be right back in there, probably against NJ Czech.
Or against Namajunas again. I mean, 2 years,
Yeah,
like, even if it's not a title, like, this is a fight that they could easily play back a couple years from now. Both of them are going to continue getting better. Both are going to continue to improve. It's the thing is, it's just this entire division, including in Jacek, is so young and so like early in their careers that we really just don't know where it's going to be 5 years from now.
no, we have no idea what the future of women's strawweight looks like. Now, speaking of the future, Khabib Nurmagomedov looked sharp, but it's hard to tell. I mean, it's not like he was fighting Tony Ferguson here
No.
and Daryl Horcher, coming in on 9 days' notice, making his UFC debut. Strictly a tune-up fight. What's the logical thing to do with the Eagle from here?
I mean, he honestly looked rusty. Like, he
Well,
got
sure, he's
popped a
been out for
little.
two
He had a
years.
little trouble closing things down early, and then he did fine and got the one he was supposed to. I think the logical thing is just to see what the division needs next. Does it need him to contend right away? Is there something? Is there going to be another fight out there for the title that could not include him, that he could go through a number one contender bout? Maybe he does that. Like if Ferguson comes back and wins a fight real quick, and suddenly it's like, oh, Ferguson's the guy that makes the most sense to put in a title fight right now, then you do that. If Habib is the next logical guy, then he's fine for it too. I think it's just, he hasn't made himself the clear and obvious next title contender off this win, but it's
No.
not like it wouldn't make sense to give it to him if that's just how the chips fall.
Yeah, but with Rafael dos Anjos, he had been scheduled to fight Conor McGregor in a Battle of Champions, got hurt. Now he's back, but who's he fighting next? I mean, pay
He's fighting
attention.
Eddie Alvarez now.
Yeah, so Eddie Alvarez, who's coming off a win over Anthony Pettis, the former Bellator champion, finally getting a shot in the UFC. So yeah, that leaves. I presume Dos Anjos would win that, but you never know. Alvarez is a very capable opponent. But I see the Eagle in there against either guy very competitively. I'd still love to see the Tony Ferguson fight. I mean,
Yeah,
these
I
are
mean,
two
there's no
guys.
reason they can't rebook that. Like Ferguson says, he'll be back pretty quickly, and I can't imagine, Habib is super worn down after that performance.
Yeah,
So
no, that was pretty much a sparring match for him. I'm sure, getting back in the octagon under the bright lights and being on broadcast television and everything made it more than a sparring match, but still, he's definitely cleared the rust out of the pipes now. And yeah, I'd love to see him against Ferguson, who's a very dangerous, frankly, a vicious opponent. I'd love to
mhm.
see that. I'd love to see that fight. So that to me was the most significant fight on the card, and it wasn't really. I mean, it was the tune-up fight and nothing
Yeah,
more and less. Then at featherweight and the Fox opener, the main card opener, the whole thing happened, or 8 fights happened on Fox. You had Cub Swanson get a unanimous decision over Hakon Diaz, 29-28, gave away a round. Featherweight fight. Swanson looked slick.
he looked all right. I mean, I kind of think, like, I thought he was on his way to a very close, ugly split decision before he landed that head kick in the third. Like, he dropped Diaz. He clearly won the second. He had the biggest round.
Yeah.
But outside of the big shots he was landing, it was really just kind of a lot of two guys looking at each other,
In
not
the
throwing a
first round,
lot,
I was
not
very
landing a
frustrated with
lot.
Swanson because he was fainting. It's like he was so in love with the feints he'd been learning in the gym that he wasn't throwing any actual strikes. And
Yeah.
then Diaz started connecting, and I started to think, has Swanson found a new way to lose? But uh,
He's a little slower than he used to be, and being a little slower than he used to be, he doesn't pull the trigger quite as often as he used to either. He's still got all the slick moves in his arsenal. That puts him that's the difference between him and Diaz. Diaz is a guy, like, his highlight reel would be low kicks and cage grinding.
yeah,
So, this was a fight made for Swanson to show that he still has something, because he had a good athlete in front of him who's going to sit out at the edge of range and give Swanson the time and space to work his game. And given enough opportunity, he was able to land enough big shots to put this fight away for him. But it
yeah.
wasn't, I don't know. I'm a little uncomfortable with the idea that, like, oh, Swanson's going to now, like, charge back up the top of the division. I think another guy like Max Holloway or Frankie Edgar in front of him, and he's dialing up another loss.
Yeah, I mean he's at 6 right now. I don't see him move, or yeah, 6. I don't see him moving up. Ricardo Lamas is the only guy in the top 5 that I like his chances against at the moment. So yeah, I don't
And
know.
Lamas is not the kind of guy who's going to give you a lot of time and space to work. Lamas is the kind of guy who's just going to pressure you, and anytime you give him an opening, he'll jump on it. Now, he might not beat Swanson that way, but
Yeah,
it
it'd
would
be a very
be.
tough test for Swanson.
And he's
Swanson,
already beat Swanson once,
yeah,
so
yeah, and but then you go higher than that, and it's like no, he's not going to
yeah.
beat Jose Aldo, Frankie Edgar, Chad Mendes, Max Holloway. Uh, not anytime soon. So that's that. It was a good fight though. It was pretty
It
entertaining.
was a good fight. It was the perfect fight to show like I say, to show what Swanson had left, to show that he's still a top 10 kind of guy that has the tools to put on an exciting performance. It's
Yeah,
just, being still a top 10 kind of guy doesn't mean you're all of a sudden on a run to
to the
contention.
title. No, but he made not short work, but he utterly dominated the number 10 fighter in the division, which is no mean feat. So then in the headliner of the preliminary card, which was also on Fox, Michael Kesa upset Benel Dariush, submission
Yeah.
second round. This is one of those fights where Dariush came out and was just looking like he was completely outclassing him on the feet, decided to tie up with him. It was immediately apparent that Kesa had like grown men strength that Dariush did not, and that Dariush would not admit it and kept forcing the fight into Kesa's range.
And that's the thing with Chiesa, is that he's so, like, pathologically aggressive on the ground, and he's very technical there. that I think, he just kind of surprises almost everyone he fights there because they'll just be beating him up on the feet, and he's a really not good striker at all. I mean, Darius
No.
absolutely tooled him in that first round. And so then they'll be like, oh, okay, well, I should take this guy down too and work him. I'm just kicking his ass on the feet. I can kick his ass everywhere. And then the moment you tie up with him, you've got this person who's just like, no, I'll take you anywhere, and I can take you anywhere. And it's going to be, I'll make short work of you. And I just, Darius, for as good as he is, doesn't have that same aggressive confidence. Like, no, I can get your back immediately and choke you out absolutely the first chance you give me.
Yeah, and even just in the wrestling portion of it, I mean, it was like Darius locks up, boom, your back's up against the cage, and it suddenly looked like Queso was a welterweight in there as soon as they locked up.
Yeah, Kies is a big lightweight, and I mean, the two sides of this are: this is a great upset win for Chiesa. This is a win that really cements him as a potential top 10 lightweight, somebody who can be, he can be losing any fight and still find a way to win it.
Yeah,
and it also
he came in at number 14 and handily beat the number 7 guy. So he'll definitely be in the top 10 if the ranking.
But it also suggests that Darius isn't really the number 7 guy. Like he, Michael Johnson is not quite the established fighter that he seems like when Darius beat him. Johnson's, best win, I think, is like what's it? Edson Barboza, who's good, but Edson Barboza's best win is Bobby Green. And, Bobby Green is kind of this phantom figure in the lightweight division. So you have some of these lightweights that aren't necessarily as solidified top talent as we want to think they are.
Yeah.
And Darius is suddenly now very much that guy again, where it was like, oh no, he's streaking, he's got all these tools, he's putting it all together. But he's now a guy that lost to Ramsey Nijem and lost to Michael Chiesa. And is that really somebody who's going to go on a run for a title shot?
The division is a big bucket of crabs. And anytime somebody starts climbing to the top, another crab gets his pinchers out and drags him back down. And that's what happened. Really and Chiesa looked good. I mean, ballsy performance. I mean, I cannot fathom getting tooled like that on the feet. I mean, he was just getting toyed with. And
I mean, this is a guy who, like I said, Mitch Clark outstruck him. Jim Miller, handily outstruck him.
Yeah.
And then Darius handily outstruck him too. And you watch him, and I'm just like, he's not going to get any better at striking. He's been fighting since 2008. This is not about to, magically turn that corner.
Yeah, no, I don't think a weekend with Freddie Roach is going to, suddenly transform him into a skilled pugilist. But he's a scrappy fighter, and he finds a way to win. So, hats off to Chiesa for sure. And then you got women's bantamweight Raquel Pennington defeated former title challenger Bethe Correia, split decision. I thought it was pretty clear win for Pennington.
Yeah, it was. She definitely. I definitely think she won it. I'm not surprised that it went to a split. It was a super ugly fight. Pennington's she's never going to be a really clean victor unless she stops you.
Yeah.
Because her technique is so hit and miss at range. She'll kind of throw out a decent snapping front kick or a nice 1-2, and then she'll just get tagged 3 or 4 times on a counter. And it wasn't a clean win, but it was a solid win. It's good enough over Bethe. I don't really think that she's on her. I don't think she's going to do well at the very top of the division, but
no, but it's the kind of division. This is a pattern we saw with Sarah McMahon and other contenders in the past. You work your way up, you get your title shot, you get beat by Ronda Rousey. It's obviously changed with Holm beating Rousey and everything. But then, after you get the big title shot, the same thing happened to Sarah McMahon, where somebody comes along and knocks you right off right away.
Yeah, this is very much the crab bucket situation, where there are a lot of women who are not really separating themselves definitively from their competition, who can all claw each other back at any moment.
Yeah. And so, you had the number 8 fighter in Correia against the number 11 fighter. So Pennington will presumably bump into the top 10. But, the title situation with Miesha Tate claiming the title from Holly Holm. Division's basically been put in a blender. So anything could happen. And Pennington is somebody that I could see in a title shot getting a title shot the next 2 years
Yeah,
easily.
anybody in that division that wins 2 or 3 fights in a row, which Pennington now has won 2, but like anyone that wins 3, they are all in contention. Anybody off a 3-fight win streak. That's what
The
we saw with.
proverbial in the mix.
Yep, that's what we saw with Kohea. That's what we saw with Holly Holm. That's where they're just. You've got a
Yeah.
couple wins, great. You're next.
Yeah. Unfortunately, with Ronda Rousey basically gone, they're not just printing money by putting opponents up against the champ anymore. So we don't really know what the Misha Tate era is going to be like.
Yeah.
Once as with Rousey out there, hopefully get 1 or 2 more fights out of Rousey. And who knows? I'm not sold on Rousey's movie career, so we'll
No.
see. We'll see how that all goes. The woman, the commercial that I saw 60 times tonight, she was incredibly annoying in that, so we'll see. But anyway, moving on. Possibly my favorite fight of the night, welterweight Santiago Ponzinibbio knocked out Court McKee, TKO 4 minutes, 15 seconds of the first round. Kid hits hard.
Yeah, he's. You have to be a better athlete than Santiago Ponzinibbio to beat him because you have to be fast enough to keep him from hitting you. If you're not fast enough to keep him from hitting you, he's probably going to beat you.
Yeah, because once he starts hitting you, then he's going to hurt you. And once you're hurt, he's going to hit you more. And once you're hurt and he's hitting you more, he's probably
And the
going to
thing
finish.
about him too is that he's a sneaky good wrestler. It's not like he's just this power brawler who will be put on his back by anyone. Court McGee got in on some takedowns, tried to get him to the ground, and Ponzinibbio's got a nice technical counter wrestling game. He's a decent grappler. He does everything all right, and then he hits really hard and he throws combinations really well. So you really just have to be able to be elusive and be able to pick him apart at range. And Court McGee was not the guy to do that.
No. And for McGee, it's another win-loss situation and unveiling itself. So I don't know. I guess
he's a very hard-working, durable fighter who is not a great athlete and is in an incredibly deep division with a lot of guys that are going to make his path forward really tough.
Yeah. So we'll see. And for Ponzinibbio, he's become an action fighter. I mean, I'd like to see him against some of the sluggers of the division and let's have some slobber knockers.
He is he is like pitch perfect mid-card filler. Like you want to see him sitting right in the middle of your fight card. And it's like, I'm excited for the next Santiago Ponzinibbio fight. I don't care who he's fighting.
For sure. I'd love to see him against Barboza or Ally Aquina.
He's welterweight, so maybe Albert Tumanov. That'd be a fun one.
Welterweight, yeah. Tumanov would be fun. Gastelum would be fun. Is Hector Lombard moving up? Is that
Hector Lombard is at middleweight, and he's now fighting Dan Henderson.
Yeah, that is just sadistic to do that to Dan. But if I had to work with Dan, I'd probably do something like that too.
But he could fight Zach Cummings, who we just saw, put on a good performance against Nicholas Dalby. Or Nordine Taleb, who just KO'd Eric Silva. There are a lot of fun mid-card fights.
Eric Silva would be a fun opponent.
Yeah, if he's still around. I don't know how much longer Eric Silva's going to be around, but
that's true.
Ponzinibbio will be a fun staple in the welterweight division for as long as his chin holds up and he can keep taking shots and delivering them.
Yes. So we'll see. And a guy that gets knockouts, they'll keep booking him longer than guys that don't get knockouts. So then in the Fox opener, you had welterweight Michael Graves submit Randy Brown. Second round, 2 minutes, 31 seconds. Thoughts on this one?
This is looking for a fight. It may quickly become looking for the next really athletic guy that's going to get ground into the mat by a really good wrestle grappler in the UFC.
Yeah.
The kind of guys that are really going to excite Dana White and Matt Serra are really top tier athletes who can show a lot of flash on the regional scene. And a lot of those guys, they don't have like a functional UFC ready game going. And you put him in with somebody against Michael Graves, who's really tough, really very aggressive, solid wrestler, solid grappler. Not the greatest striker, but not a bad one. Not just terrible striker. And Brown takes a loss. What you can also see there is that he came up on the Ring of Combat circuit, which is good, but a lot of his fights are out of in a really small cage, and so all of his takedown defense was, you try to take me down, I'll get pushed up against the fence, and his takedown defense is really strong against the fence, and the moment he's out in open space, nothing. Like, he actually almost tried to sit against the cage in the middle of the cage when he got taken down, and he just ended up flat on his back. And
yeah, that was not a good look. So yeah, some octagon adjustments there for young Randy Brown and Michael Graves. I don't know that this says anything, but it's a good solid win. Keeps him in the organization.
It's a good win. He's your prototypical MMA prospect. He's gonna be a good, solid, well-rounded fighter. And the big thing for Randy Brown is just that, to capitalize on his potential, he's going to have to really do some quick growing so that he doesn't end up out of the UFC on a 2 or 3 fight losing skid just because they keep throwing him at guys that can exploit the big holes in his game.
Yeah, and they'll do that. That's how they build fights. They will. So, but then you had 3 fights on the Fight Pass card. Obviously, John Dodson at bantamweight, annihilating Manvel Gamburyan, 47 seconds. Reminded me of BJ Penn destroying Cal Uno way back when with the uppercuts to a guy sitting on his ass up against the cage. Dodson just looked like he was a whole weight division faster than Manny Gamburyan, which is pretty much what he is. So kind of fun to have the magician back at bantamweight. He's a dangerous man at that weight division.
Yeah, and he'd obviously hit a wall at flyweight. He wasn't
going to wall named Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson.
Yep. He wasn't going to contend anymore, so why not go to bantamweight, which is a bigger division? Tons of top fights up there he hasn't taken yet. He's got a win over TJ Dillashaw already, so he can absolutely call for that fight.
Yeah, he blitzed TJ Dillashaw in the Ultimate Fighter finale when they were on that season. So yeah, I mean he's definitely in the mix immediately, even though Gamburyan wasn't in the top 15. Having the win over Dillashaw and being a former title challenger, I would think Dodson is, I mean, it's not saying much, but he's one of the more marquee names in the bantamweight division. So,
this is the nice, it's kind of like the Khabib tune-up fight further up the card. This is just a nice introduction to back to 135. It's okay, you came in, you got a nice flashy win, it was exciting. Let's put you in a bigger fight now against one of the top guys and see if.
And it was so short. They showed it 2 more times in the course of the evening. So, it was a good exposure for the magician. All right, and then you had Cesar Mitanch Ferrara get a unanimous decision over Oluwale Bangbose. Bangbose came out looking tough in the first round, and then we quickly discovered he really can't grapple.
Yeah, this is exactly the Randy Brown, Michael Graves kind of situation, too. You got another really exciting athletic talent who's as inexperienced as UFC fighters get. Started his career in mid-2013, so that's the start of his pro career.
Yeah.
And Ferreira's a seasoned vet. Ferreira doesn't have a great chin, but he was able to do just enough to weather that first round. And after that, Bambos, he's never been fought past 3 minutes in his career.
Yeah. So he got a lot of cage time and got a lot of education there. So, and then in the opener, the guy with too many names, Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, TKO to Mari Akhmedov, who you got to think is probably done in the UFC. 3 minutes, 3 seconds to the third round. Akhmedov starts great guns and then fades.
Yeah, well, even he fades, and he also never changes speeds, really. Like, he throws fast, but he's always throwing at that one fast pitch. And so over time, too, guys just start to time it. They start to get his rhythm down, and then they can start answering back. And he doesn't have the most amazing chin in the world. So once they start answering back...
He doesn't seem to have any defense in any range of the game.
Yeah, he's just he's a great example of a great athlete who never really picked up quite the right technical skill set to consistently compete at a high level.
Yeah, and showing no signs. The second straight loss in the UFC. They might give him more time, they might not. But anyway, back to the top of the card. Glover annihilated Rashad Evans. I don't know what that means.
It means that it means that they still can promote Glover into some more big fights, and that's good news for light heavyweight because
and
there's got to give somebody some big fights.
And there's got to be some brand value in getting a big knockout over a big name on broadcast American television. So, and I don't think the Shogun Hua fight would have led anywhere. I mean, Shogun and Rashad are equally shot.
Be 2 guys who, even off a win aren't realistic contenders for anyone in the top 5. Glover, as long as he keeps winning, it makes sense. It would make sense for him to fight Alexander Gustafsson or to fight
Definitely. The scariest guy in
Anthony
the
Johnson.
division is Rumble Johnson at number 2, and I would not be worried for Glover's safety or health if he steps in the cage with
No,
Rumble. So whereas with Rashad, no way do I want to see Rashad Evans
yeah,
in the.
Rashad beats Shogun, and you're not like, oh man, I really want to see Shad fight Anthony Johnson now.
Yeah,
Oh, they're
yeah,
both at ATT, so they wouldn't. But or even I want to see Rashad fight OSP. That would be like, no, OSP is gonna probably KO him.
yeah. The only reason you'd want to see that is it's like if you woke up, I want to see somebody throwing baby chicks into a giant meat grinding sluice. Like, yeah, this is not. Healthy, normal people do not want to see Rashad Evans fighting anybody really scary at this point in time. And what we saw was plenty scary. And
we
sure.
saw that the first really hard shot that Rashad takes, he's probably going down at this point in his career.
Yeah. And, that's the nature of the thing. When Rashad was a young lion, he did the same thing to Chuck Liddell. And, times the wheel turns, and that's that. So next week, we got UFC 197, John Jones versus Ovince St. Preux. Supposed to be Daniel Cormier in there, but still should be a fun fight. I think it'll be a good tune-up fight for Jones after more than a year. Almost a year and a half outside of the cage, and plenty of drama outside of the cage in that time. So, well, good. And OSP is a very potent specimen.
I'm really looking forward to that fight a lot, honestly. Like, I don't have, I want to see John Jones out there fighting again. If he's against somebody that is not technically able to compete with him, then great. I want to see John Jones show off a little,
Yeah.
Like,
definitely. And OSP is the kind of guy that, like, I don't see him putting together a title run anyway, so I don't feel like we're really losing anything. It's
no,
not like
he's in the position right now where he's clawed his way up to that top 5 spot. And great, give him elite fights, give him really tough fights, let him go in there and see what he can do. If he gets a miracle big win, then wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It gives him something huge, a huge moment in his career. And if he doesn't, you've got somebody at light heavyweight who's at least working. I mean, that's the thing with this division. You need some kind of movement to keep everything going.
Yeah, this division has been gummed up for a long time. And you'll also have the flyweight title fight with Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson against former Olympic gold medalist Henry Cejudo. Should be an interesting fight. I'm not convinced Cejudo is ready for it. I'm not convinced he's ever going to be ready for Mighty Mouse.
Yeah, I don't know that he is either, but I think it's the perfect thing to keep him on track for the rest of his career. I think that it's the absolute right thing where he gets beat and it just keeps him hungry. It's that definitive stamp. You have a challenge out there in front of you that's going to make you work harder. And I think that's what Cejudo needs. So I'm actually really glad that he's getting pushed up the ladder early. I think it's going to be extra motivation for him in the long term.
Absolutely. We'll also have Anthony Pettis versus Edson Barboza, Robert Whitaker versus Rafael Natal, and the exciting Yair Rodriguez against Andre Fili. So that should be a fun card. So we'll be back with a full coverage of that. Eugene will have the knuckle up tomorrow talking about this fight, and then we'll have the If I Did It, Care Don't Care preview, vivisection prospectus, and back to the 6th round post-fight. So remember to subscribe to MMA Nation on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to MMA Nation on iTunes, and you can hear us without looking at our ugly faces. Read us on bloodyelbow.com. Follow us on Twitter at TheZaneSimon, at KidNate. Anything else I need to plug, Zane?
Nah.
All right. Well, adios, MMA aficionados. Thanks for watching. Thanks, Zane. We'll see you next time.